Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Getting into Eastern Conference Finals here. Got the Pacers and the Celtics. Not my Knicks, but we'll be moving along here. I've got 4 player prop bets all ready for game 1 on Tuesday night. Also got a futures bet for this series before it kicks off, so make sure to subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Going to be going through the record of how we're doing here. Still up about 30 units on the season. A little bit of a tough playoffs, but we're looking to pick it back up here with 2 more series to go in these conference finals. Coming back with the live stream as well on Tuesday here, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, to help us get a few more bets in for this game. Take a look at a couple things. You guys bring your bets, jump in the comments. We go through that stuff together and get a little bit better. But for now, let's get right into what we've got for Tuesday, game 1, Pacers and Celtics. Quick look at the matchups for both teams. I want to kind of take a look at who might be guarding whom in this one moving forward. Everybody here is guarding the person above or below them. So we've got Miles Turner and Al Horford, Tatum and Pascal, Brown and Nesmith. But I want to make clear those are interchangeable. So those 2 dudes for the Pacers, Pascal and Aaron Nesmith, they'll both kind of switch on and off between Jason and Jalen here for the Celtics. A little bit dependent on who's on the floor. Obviously, both of them are, all 4 of these guys are on the court, I should say. This should be the matchup. Pascal on Tatum, Nesmith on Jalen Brown, and usually vice versa, although you do see things switch up a little bit more for them as well. We saw some Tatum on Biggs, some Tatum on Halliburton. So that might be a look that Joe Mazzulla goes to as well, where he uses the versatile Tatum on defense in a way that he can at least guard other guys at times as well to kind of throw the Pacers off of their offensive rhythm as much as possible. But for the most part, this is what you're going to see with Drew Holiday on Nembhard and Derek White on Halliburton. That will also be pretty interchangeable. To be honest, both of these teams are so versatile and they switch so much that you're going to see a lot less this guy on as the primary defender on that guy and vice versa quite as much as you might in other series. But I think it's important to keep in mind that these matchups are what they are so that at least you know a little bit of where guys are going to be on the court. For instance, Al Horford and Miles Turner both going to be pulling each other from the basket when they're on offense. They both shoot threes. They both stand outside the three-point line pretty consistently and spot up more than anything, as well as a few of those pick and rolls. But I think you're still going to see a lot of Brown, Tatum, Holiday, White, and some variation of that pick and roll being what they go to the most, plus plenty of ISO for these Celtics players. And that could be what gets these Pacers in trouble. But that's going to be what we see for the matchups for the most part. And then obviously interchange Kristaps for Al Horford when he's out there and available to come back probably in game 3 is when we'll see Porzingis back on the floor. And right into first best bet here with Peyton P, also known as Pesto Peyton. Not really sure why, but that is one of his nicknames. We're going under to kick off this series for Peyton Pritchard. Under 12.5 points and assists combined, minus 108 on DraftKings. Here's where I'm at. 7 of these 10 games he's gone under. This points prop is at 9.5. It was at about 7.5. It was as low as 5.5 when we kicked off the playoffs for Pritchard. It became clear very quickly that he was going to get a bit more minutes and a bit more run with the starters than with the backups. So that line did reasonably go up to about 7, 8.5 in this last series for Boston against the Cavs. But I would also say that the books were sort of factoring in the blowout factor where Peyton Pritchard is going to play in garbage time minutes as the leader of the offense. That actually hurts him if it doesn't turn into a blowout, because when he's playing with these starters, he's a catch and shoot guy. He's not going to be a facilitator, playmaker quite as much, right? And with that in mind, now he's got to play against this very, very good catch and shoot defense in the Pacers who don't give up stuff in the corners. And to be honest, that's where Peyton Pritchard lives when he's on the floor with starters like Holiday, White, Tatum, Brown. He's playing in the corner, not quite as much up top with the ball in his hands. If he wants to get those corner threes off, this is not the team to do it against in the Pacers, who are a top 5 team limiting corner threes. They're a top 5 team limiting threes in general, and aren't real, and a top 5 team as well in defending spot up shooters, because that is the bane of this defense is basically they don't double team, and that is to their detriment quite a bit, especially against really good one-on-one players like Tatum and Brown. After game 1, maybe we'll see a little bit of adjustment from Rick Carlisle, where he does sort of go mix up his defenses a bit more. We saw him do that against the Knicks in their last series, where Brunson was absolutely murdering them, and as a result, Rick Carlisle had to switch up his defense a bit and make it a bit less just everybody stick to their man, and a bit more we need an extra set of eyeballs and potentially another body to guard a Jason Tatum or a Jalen Brown. Predominantly probably Tatum, to be honest, but it could be both these guys. And if they're going to double, they're probably going to double Tatum. But that isn't going to be the case right off the bat. I don't see that being the initial defense that Carlisle sets up, which means that we've got Peyton Pritchard needing to either score against starting competition that is not going to give him catch and shoot stuff, or against backups who are going to be a lot better than the backups that we saw guarding him for Cleveland and Miami. You're going to get a lot better bench play here from guys like Ben Shepherd and TJ McConnell, who are going to be much harder for him to get around and get by and get open shots against than those sort of scrubs, for lack of a better way to say it. We were down to like to the third rotation of guys for Miami and for Cleveland, who was just dealing with so many injuries. This Pacers team, nice and healthy, should be able to limit Peyton Pritchard to go under the 12.5 PA in game 1. I swear I like the Celtics to win game 1, because who doesn't? But I'm going with another under for the Celtics as well. Al Horford, Papa Al, under 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined. This was at 20.5 at open and has been bumped down to 19.5. But now we're getting even money here. So I'm going half a unit on this one. I want to see a little bit more about how they're going to play Al Horford. And I need to see how the defense is constructed to feel as confident about Horford's under as I do about Pritchard, which has a full unit on it for Peyton P. For Horford, though, there's a lot of recency numbers here that just give me this under and the level of involvement that he has in the offense. So he's gone under in 9 of 10 playoff games. That includes 3 of them with Kristaps playing the whole game. He's gone under in 3 of 4 versus the Pacers during the regular season. Not using that quite as much, but I thought at least was relevant to support this this bet here in general. I'm looking more at the really like the rebounds and the assists. And the rebound chances in the playoffs, he's at 9.4 per game, 6 boards, right? But he's also really uninvolved in the offense. He's at 4 potential assists on 2 total assists per game here in the playoffs as well. The field goals, also something I don't feel comfortable with if he's not hitting threes. And Miles Turner, we'll see how he plays. This is a big, Miles Turner's defense is a big reason for why I'm only going half a unit, because this could go one of 2 ways, where Miles Turner decides that he's going to stick to Al Horford, not give him any open threes, which does leave other guys on the back end to go one-on-one and have to defend Tatum and Brown. That might be a problem, so that might get switched up. I don't see that being the case right away. Once again, though, I still see guys sticking to their man and not worrying about double teaming other dudes like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, which means that Al Horford isn't going to be left wide the hell open. We could see some Pascal Siakam on Al Horford, but he's so crucial to guarding a guy like Jason Tatum, who's just too big for most of these other players on the Pacers outside of he and Miles Turner. And Miles Turner does not have the quickness to stay with Tatum. So we're going to see Pascal on Tatum, which means he's probably going to be left on an island a bit. That said, like, I do believe in Pascal's defense enough that he should be one of the better defenders, let's say, at being able to limit Jason Tatum. So all this comes back to affect the Al Horford stuff, because if he's not left wide open in the corner by Miles Turner, then that means he's going to be guarded for the only shot that he really has anymore. He's not taking Turner down low one-on-one. He's going to need those catch and shoot stuff against a very, very good catch and shoot defense, like I've said. So if they stay true to the way that they play defense and the form that they've shown, the Pacers defense I'm speaking about, during the regular season and in this matchup with Papa Al, he should be right for another under 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists. The other center, Miles Turner, aforementioned here, we're going under with him as well, and that is at 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined, minus 128 there. Also going half a unit to test this one out. Now, I wanted to have some bets in here, and I don't like to bring leans to you guys because I don't know what that does for you. At the same time, when I do bring leans or play these half unit plays as opposed to full unit, that does usually mean I'm also going to take a look at this with you in the live stream tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Eastern here on Tuesday. So we'll look at Miles Turner again in that sense, but I'm putting half a unit for him to go under right now because a couple things. Let's start with the road stuff. Road playoff, Miles Turner has not been nearly as good as home playoff Miles Turner. And that's been the case for pretty much everybody on the Pacers, let's be honest, right? But 12.7 points per game here on the road, 6.2 boards and 1.5 assists for Miles Turner when he's played away from home during this postseason. That's with a 19% usage rate. So that's about what you're going to see for him. In fact, that's been a little bit high compared to what it was during the regular season for Miles Turner. So there is the possibility that this regresses back to the mean a little bit. At the same time, he's played a few more minutes in the playoffs than he was in the regular season. So you can probably bank on about a 15 to 20% usage rate for Miles Turner in this one. That said, everything else, as far as the rebounds and the assists, I don't really like it for him at this point. The Celtics are third best at limiting rebounds to centers. They're also very good at limiting assists in general, top 5 in the league, and limiting assists to centers as well, which is not a stat that I totally bank on. Centers aren't really looked at unless you're Nikola Jokic, obviously, to assist. So it's not like those numbers are as dependable. They fluctuate a little bit more when it comes to assists for centers. but I like adding the under 1.5 to it to get us to 25.5 PRA for Miles, because that isn't going to be what's expected of him. He's going to be sort of the outlet to catch and shoot. So if you do think that he's going to score a ton of points here, obviously you don't like this bet quite as much, but I like him to be at around 13 to 15 points in this game with the amount of shots that I'm projecting him to be taking. And that's been the case for him when he's played Boston. He's gone under in 4 of 5 versus that team this year because of the fact that his field goal attempts aren't that high. They do have, especially with Kristaps, they have the type of center that can get out and guard him a little bit better. So I want to see what happens with Al Horford as his primary defender. No shade thrown to Al Horford. He's still a very good defender, just not quite nearly the same, to be honest, at this point, as Kristaps. So when Kristaps comes back, we might see this number drop for Miles Turner. But even with Al Horford, I just think this is too high for a guy that I don't like to get too many rebounds in this one, especially when he's pulled away from the basket on defense because of Al Horford. So we're going under 25.5 PRA for Turner in game 1. One more player prop before I get into that futures bet with you real quick. TJ McConnell, under 14.5 points and assists combined for a full unit for TJ. And this starts with the McConnell rule, which we talked about a ton in this last series versus the Knicks, which is TJ McConnell is taking 10 shots a game, sometimes 11. He takes all twos. In fact, if you wanted to add under 1 3-pointer made for TJ, I'd be fine with that. I just couldn't use it in a parlay, and it's like minus 260 for most of these books, and they didn't really make it available to use in a same game parlay. So that's the only reason I didn't take that and throw it in with another bet. But I still like him to get the points and assists because he takes all twos and he makes 5 of them a game. That adds up to 10. So the points are at 9.5. I also really like adding the assist, though, for this game because this is something he's done a ton against Boston, which is basically like an assist every 2 minutes against this team based on how often he was playing against them in the regular season and also getting these dimes up pretty high against them. So if you look at, like I said, the shooting and everything all there, but I also like the fact that the adult in the room, as I continue to go back to that phrase, especially in the playoffs, for the Pacers, is TJ McConnell, to be honest. I mean, Halliburton and Pascal, they're going to run the starting offense for sure. But when you have TJ McConnell out there, there's a reason that he's played more on the road than he has at home. He has a higher usage rate on the road. He scores more points on the road, in more minutes on the road, because he is a guy that they're going to rely on to not get rattled. What is he, like a 14-year veteran at this point? I don't even know if we all expected him to be in the league for any amount of time, much less for this amount of time. So really kudos to him for making that jump. But he also is like the adult in the room against Boston. So you've seen him play now against Boston a number of times this season. And in the last 3 versus them, as long as he has 20+ minutes, which he's done in 3 this season, 13.3 points per game and 4.3 assists. He's had a couple games with none, and he's had a couple games with 5 and 8 assists, right, versus Boston this year. So there is a little bit of a fluctuation with his assists, but they're always there and available for him in the way that he gets into the lane and causes problems. So I'll keep taking him to be one of the dudes that can really sort of stretch this Boston defense and make it imbalanced by getting into the lane, either dishing from there to open shooters, which is what they want to do, or just taking that little bunny that is as pure of a shot as you're going to find in the NBA is TJ McConnell inside of 8 feet. One of the surest things that you can bank on to go in. So we're going to take him to do well in this first road game here against the Boston Celtics. As for the exact series price future that I'm going with here, I'm taking the Celtics to win 4-1 in 5 games. I know that they're going to lose a game in this series. I would stay entirely away from a sweep for the Celtics here. There's going to be a letdown game, first of all, which is what the Celtics have done every playoff series since last season. And now we're also talking about a team that is just going to take you to the woodshed at home, to be honest. Like, Indiana is going to bring a bat to the fight when they play in Indiana. They've been incredible at home. So they're going to take at least one of those games. To be honest, the way that this goes wrong is Indiana wins game 2, which we've seen twice now for Boston, where they've lost game 2 of the first 2 series against far inferior teams to what they're bringing to the table each night. They just have those instinctual letdowns for Boston. They just kind of start smelling themselves. They don't bring the same tenacity or focus, more importantly, that they in games 2 as after they win a game 1 big time. So I'm not saying they're necessarily going to run away with this game 1 entirely, but I fully expect them to win game 1. I don't know if they're going to lose game 2 or game 3, but I do think they're going to lose a game in Indiana. The thing is if this is 3-1 going back to Boston in game 5, do not see Indiana pulling that out. They are like basically 20 points worse per game on the road than they are at home. So the reason that they would win game 2 is because, like I said, the sort of human nature of these Celtics to sort of just give their opponent a chance by taking their foot off the gas in game 2. That would be what scares me about them losing at home, but they should win the first 2. I just don't see Indiana getting swept at home in games 3 and 4. And then I see Boston finishing this out in game 5. So I took them for a unit here, plus 225 for the exact series to go Celtics 4-1. Before we get into that show record, quick reminder about the Discord. It is live. Link is in the description of the video. Highly recommend jumping in there. Got a lot of good people in there. Really good community going on right now. We've grown this thing pretty quickly as well. So there's a lot of really, I think we're getting sharper is what I'm seeing here as well in the comments. A lot of good bettors coming in and throwing in their angles. And this is all about having as many eyeballs as you can on the different lines and spreads and angles that might be going on. Plus news breaking all the time. It's a really good place for everybody to keep dropping the stuff that they find online, but really enjoying this Twitter community that we're building here. So if you do want to get in for free for now, jump into the description of the video, grab that link. All right, playoff totals, not where we want them to be. We are still down about -6 units in the playoffs after a really bad last 7 days. Let's put it that way. The last week has been a little bit brutal, which has really dragged us down. Still up 27 units on the season year to date after up 33.3 in the regular season here. But we got to pick it up with these player props. So we're going to give these game ones a little bit of a feeler to see how these teams match up in the postseason this late in the postseason as well. Same concept for the Western Conference games when we get to the Mavs and the Timberwolves. But for now, like I said, going to keep this thing a little bit reasonable with the units and not spread ourselves too thin. This is really all one bad day that we didn't mitigate the disaster. Lost 5 units last Thursday. That's the bulk of the stuff that we've lost. So we've got to chip away and get it back. You're not going to get it all back at once just because we lost a lot of it at once. Just need to be a little bit more disciplined and get back into what we do here in the playoffs moving forward. And that is all the time that we have here in the Indiana Pacers, Boston Celtics preview and best bets picks that we've got for game 1 in this series. Last reminder is this props.cash, 25% off if you are not yet a member there. Use this for the first month off, 25% off the first month, I should say. Use code LYB24 and you can get yourself a little discount there on the first month if you're not yet using this tool, which is very helpful for manipulating all the data that you can as best you can. I'll be using that on the live stream tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, as I mentioned here on Tuesday before we get into this Celtics and Pacers game. So come in there, jump in there, bring your bets. Jump in the comments. Let's get after it. And until I see you tomorrow, happy betting.